It's been a while since we were able to talk in a live capacity about what's going on in the transfer portal. So let's do that, man. And I want to start with this. This was a big-time portal entry, and it is wide receiver from Texas A&M, Evan Stewart. Evan Stewart is currently the top uncommitted player in the transfer portal. Number 2 player overall for us here at On 3. Now, Pete Nakos jumped on the Indy Staples On 3 show. It's also on this program, so make sure you're dialed. Another reason to be subscribed. Also check that out on podcast. But he and Andy got to chopping it up. And the 2 schools that got thrown out there first for Evan Stewart as potential landing spots was Texas and Alabama. And Pete Nakos did a little Lee Corso, said, no, not so fast, my friend. Been thrown out there, I've heard those, but I don't see those being viable options. Instead, Pete brought up schools like Florida State, Ole Miss, Tennessee, USC, and Oregon, all schools he's hearing right now for a one Evan Stewart. Let me backtrack again. Evan Stewart, say what you want about A&M, as much of a difficult time they've had these last couple of years, Evan Stewart has been balling. He is, I think, has the potential in the right offense to be one of the best receivers in the country, like Biletnikoff kind of status. That's how good he is. You see that ball in the air, it's 50-50 ball for most people. It's like 80-20 Evan Stewart's ball whenever that happens. Great after the catch. His game translates anywhere. So you hear a lot about guys and having the right fit, and if they end up, do they fit in this offense, do they fit in this scheme and all that? Like, I'm telling you, Evan Stewart, it don't matter. Just get him the football. Florida State, I think, is really interesting because Johnny Wilson will be gone to the league. In my opinion, Keon Coleman, more likely than not, will be gone to the league. And they have a proof of concept there with transfer portal guys. We say it a lot. We say the same thing right now with the quarterback. Keep an eye on who they get at quarterback via the portal, because I'm assuming they're going to go that way. Have to believe that will affect his decision. Same thing with Ole Miss. Proof of concept. Trey Harris transfers there, blows up. Juice Wells said, I also want to go there. You wonder if it's a thing where, is there enough football to go around is just my question, not with any inside information, but Ole Miss would make a lot of sense as well. Staying in the SEC, would have to believe that's appealing to a guy like Evan Stewart. Now, Tennessee, I think, is one to really watch here, just by nature of the amount of sense it makes. We talk about, the scheme fitting the player. Evan Stewart fits anywhere. I already said that. But in terms of like the damage you can do in that offense and the potential of having Nico really step into his own this upcoming season, have a guy that can more than likely get you the football, the number 1 player in the 2023 class. You have an offense that is going to allow you to put up big numbers. Just ask Jalen Hyatt. If you win your matchup one-on-one in that offense, you're scoring a touchdown or you're getting a big chunk play. I have to imagine that's appealing to a guy like Evan Stewart given his skill set. So keep an eye on that. I'm excited for the tracking of his recruitment now with him being in the portal. Again, it's a very, very big fish out there. He's not a guy that you hope maybe ends up working out for you. You know what you're getting in Evan Stewart. He's been balling with a revolving door at quarterback more or less these last couple of years, and he's been doing it in the SEC. So feel pretty confident that'll translate. Now, Tate Rodemaker is also in the transfer portal. The Florida State quarterback. You thought he was going to start the bowl game against Georgia. Does not look like that will be the case. For me, this whole thing with Tate Rodemaker can be summed up pretty simply. We all want to be wanted, man. We all want to be wanted. And I have to believe Tate Rodemaker saw the writing on the wall with how aggressive Florida State was being in the transfer portal quarterback market, talking to DJU, talking to Cam Ward. Says, okay, I want to go somewhere where I'm going to be the guy. I've waited my turn behind Jordan Travis. Mathematically, by nature of how long I've waited my turn, it should be my time. And right now, it sounds like he would have to go and compete with a high-level portal guy to get his job. At the stage of the game that Tate Rodemaker's in, not a risk that he necessarily wants to take. So hard to blame either side of this thing. The calendar itself is such a mess. We'll probably do a segment on that in the not-too-distant future as to why Tate Rodemaker has to transfer and make a decision right now where I promise you he would love to step in there and be the guy to play against Georgia. Regardless, you feel bad for Tate Rodemaker, but kind of just the nature of, again, where the calendar is at across the college football landscape. Now, over our Christmas, I guess it was Christmas Eve, actually, Walter Nolen commits to Ole Miss. This is not enormously surprising. We knew there was a lot of smoke around Ole Miss and Oregon for Walter Nolen. But it was surprising to me to hear the immediate reaction from the folks in the Twitterverse. Probably just, bitter fans saying bitter things. But there was so much juice around Walter Nolen going to Ole Miss. A lot of pushback, I guess, from the other college football fan bases saying, well, he just went to the highest bidder. Well, hey, they just totally bought him with NIL. To that I would say, have we not been paying attention together here? Is that not what college football is right now? Like, okay, so let's rewind that. Walter Nolen is going to the highest bidder. That's what someone's trying to tell you as a negative thing against why he went to Ole Miss and trying to detract from Ole Miss landing him and trying to take away that, joy. I'm just sitting here saying, good for Ole Miss. Good for Ole Miss to have their NIL ducks in a row to land the top player in the transfer portal. And if you're yelling about that and having an issue with that, I would say maybe lower your voice. It's not really a good look to yell about being broke. Well, hey, you just bought him. Y'all could have bought him too if that was the case. If that truly was as cut and dry as it is, as you say it is, then y'all could have ponied up and made something happen. Again, I'm not saying that was the case, but I am saying for the folks that are shouting and complaining about NIL, I'm like, come on now. Come on now. I don't think we necessarily want to go down that road and have an issue about the NIL structure and resources for your team if that's why you couldn't be in the Walter Nolen sweepstakes. So however you slice it, this is huge for Ole Miss. We've said it many times. I'll say it one more time right here on this podcast, or podcast if you're listening back. Quick plug for the podcast. But on this live show, this is Ole Miss taking that next step. Princely Umanmielen, you had Tyler Barron. Now you got your third SEC proven commodity on the defensive line. They are striving towards competing with the Bamas and the Georgias, not just competing, but beating those teams. That is their goal, and that is the move like this with Walter Nolen being added to that roster. They understand the assignment. Got to have the big boys to compete with the big boys. Now, Georgia, they made some moves over this past couple of days, too. Trevor Etienne, running back from Georgia. Colby Young, wide receiver from Miami. Two extremely talented individuals that will obviously add to the offense that's already been very potent this last couple of years. To me, the addition of both these guys, one, they're there to make an impact. Like some people were saying, well, hey, we got some young guys in that backfield as well. We want to make sure they get some touches too. Trevor Etienne is a proven commodity. You don't have to wonder what's going on in that backfield. Colby Young, same thing. Miami wasn't necessarily as high-flying as they would have liked to be consistently this year. But with Carson Beck running the show, I think Colby Young's going to have a chance to have a really big pop here this upcoming season. But to me, this is more insurance of the Georgia offense staying dynamic. Like we've seen them evolve really since the beginning of the Stetson Bennett era, which to be fair is a pretty sizable length of time. No shade intended. Stetson, we love you. The offense has started to evolve from pro style. We're going to just ram it down your throat, be really physical in the trenches. They still have that. That's still who they want to be. But I think with what they were during different points in this season, they want to throw the football. They want to attack you different ways. Trevor Etienne, also a good pass catcher. They want to have big body dynamic wide receivers on the outside. Have to believe Brock Bowers is, for where I'm sitting, probably going to the NFL. So you add more size in that wide receiver room and be able to create those mismatches that you want to. Like, this is further proof of concept, attracting the right players to further the offense and staying dynamic of being able to throw the ball well, run the ball well, and guess what? You got the quarterback to do it. So that's going to be a lot of fun for the good folks in Athens. Those are two big pickups. Now, this isn't necessarily too much transfer portal news as much as it is reports, intel, maybe is the right word to use there. Pete Nakos, that's the second time I've mentioned PD Portal during this show, so that tells you who you need to follow on Twitter. Wouldn't it hurt to hit the notifications there as well. Says Ohio State is getting involved with Kansas State quarterback Will Howard. Now, to be clear, USC, I believe, is still a very viable option. The NFL, also still a very viable option for Will Howard. But the Ohio State noise, I think, is really interesting because I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of just assumed USC was going to be that school for Will Howard. And it still could be, but what we say a lot with these quarterbacks when it comes to making their decisions, whether it's on the recruiting trail at the high school level, whether it's via the portal, it comes down to your priorities. It comes down to your priorities. Two really good options. Most quarterbacks would kill to be able to go to USC or Ohio State. So Will Howard, just pick one, brother. That's kind of where we're standing. But the priorities, I think, are as follows. If you want to just put up good numbers, and if you want to be in a staff with a proven track record of developing quarterbacks with the proven quarterback whisperer, that's Lincoln Riley. Now, if your priority is to trust a structure and play with great playmakers and have the opportunity to be in a more stable organization, Ohio State makes sense. So it's kind of just what do you want to bet on to put yourself in the best position for the NFL draft. As good as USC and Lincoln Riley is with developing quarterbacks, there's some questions about how they're going to compete in the Big Ten. They didn't exactly knock it out of the park in the Pac-12 and in this past season, and you don't know that's really going to improve too much. And Will Howard, to be clear, did say he wants to be somewhere where he can compete for some hardware. So is that USC? I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying if you're Ohio State, the appeal there is just what I said. The weapons. Ryan Day also not necessarily a slouch of a quarterback developer either with what he's done with different guys like Justin Fields and CJ Stroud. Like, say all you want about Lincoln Riley and USC. I think that's still a great fit, and how much they throw the football, that makes a lot of sense. But there's also, I think, the appeal for Ohio State of like, hey, outside of Kyle McCord, for the most part, those guys that have been to Ohio State in the past couple of years have been first-round draft picks, Heisman Trophy finalists. So it's, do you want to trust Lincoln Riley, or do you want to trust the structure that's in place and produced pretty similar results to what Lincoln Riley has done at the quarterback position? So both are great options, just a matter of where Will Howard wants to end up at. And obviously, whenever he does commit, we will have immediate thoughts for you right away. And that could also, obviously, like I just said, that could include what's going on with the NFL and how he sees himself landing in that department. So that's kind of the latest from the portal. But again, keep it locked right here. We'll have thoughts for you every single time we do a live show. As long as the portal is open, we will have updates with who's going where, who's jumped in, and just different intel like that with what Pete Nakos is saying in regards to the rumblings across the transfer portal. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.